Jessamy didn't know the man she'd married 3 hours ago was the Alpha King. She didn't know that the guests laughing into their wine cups would soon choke on their mockery. She didn't know that her mother's refusal to meet her eyes would haunt the woman for years to come. And she certainly didn't know that by dawn, the entire kingdom would learn what happened when you humiliated the king's chosen mate. All she knew was that Theron's hand was warm in hers, steady and calm, even as another wave of laughter rippled through the wedding hall. "To the bride," announced Aldrich Vorn, alpha of the Ashenmoor pack, raising his goblet with theatrical flourish. His smile was sharp, performative cruelty dressed as celebration. "Who turned down 3 bonding offers from noble wolves to marry a—" He paused, letting the silence stretch. "What exactly are you again, stranger? A wanderer? A packless drifter?" More laughter. Jessamy felt it like stones against her skin. Theron simply inclined his head, his expression unreadable. "Just a man who got lucky." "Lucky indeed," Aldrich continued, his eyes glittering with malice. "Our Jessamy has always been peculiar. Perhaps a peculiar match suits her." Jessamy's fingers tightened around Theron's. 3 years ago, Aldrich's son had offered her a mating bond. She'd refused, and the Alpha had never forgiven the insult. Now he was extracting his payment in public shame. She scanned the hall, searching for a single sympathetic face. Her mother sat rigid at the family table, staring at her plate as though it contained sacred texts. Her younger sister Nova picked at her food, cheeks flushed with secondhand embarrassment. Her father had been dead 6 years, and tonight, Jessamy felt that absence like a wound reopened. The Ashenmoor pack had gathered not to celebrate, but to witness her disgrace. A woman of middling status marrying a man with no pack, no lineage, no name anyone recognized. In their world, it was social suicide. But they didn't see what Jessamy saw. They couldn't. "Perhaps," called out a woman from the back, her voice dripping with false sweetness. The seer finally saw her own future and realized no proper wolf would have her. The laughter that followed was louder, crueler. Jessamy felt Theron shift beside her. For the first time since the ceremony, something flickered across his face. Not embarrassment. Not shame. Something that looked almost like cold calculation. "Pay them no mind," Jessamy whispered, squeezing his hand. "They don't matter." Theron turned to look at her, and his eyes softened. "They matter to you. I can see how much this hurts. I chose you. I'd choose you again. Would you?" His voice was quiet, meant only for her. "Even knowing nothing about me? I know everything I need to know." That was both true and a lie. Jessamy knew he was kind. She'd seen him give his last coin to a beggar child in the market square. She knew he was gentle. He'd found an injured sparrow and nursed it back to health with patience she'd never witnessed in any wolf. She knew his touch made her feel safe in ways she couldn't explain, as though her soul had been waiting her entire life to recognize his. What she didn't know was where he came from, what pack had raised him, why he had appeared in Ashenmoor 6 months ago with nothing but the clothes on his back and a sword too fine for a wanderer. But when she looked at him, truly looked with her gift, she saw something that defied explanation. A bond so bright it hurt to perceive. Golden threads connecting his heart to hers, ancient and unbreakable, as though the universe itself had woven them together before either drew breath. She'd never seen anything like it, not once in 23 years. So when he'd asked her to marry him, she'd said yes without hesitation, even knowing what it would cost her. "Another toast," Aldrich announced, silencing the murmurs. "To the mystery groom. May he prove himself worthy of our pack's hospitality." The word dripped with threat. Theron rose slowly from his seat. Every eye in the hall turned to him, expecting him to grovel, to thank the Alpha for his generosity, to play the role of grateful outsider. Instead, he simply looked at Aldrich with those steel-colored eyes and said nothing. The silence stretched, became uncomfortable. Aldrich's smile faltered. "Well?" the Alpha demanded. Have you no words of gratitude? Theron's lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. I have many words, he said softly, but gratitude isn't among them. Jessamy's heart stuttered. 6 months ago, she would have been terrified by the sudden tension in the room. Now, with Theron beside her, she felt something else entirely. Anticipation. Careful, Wanderer. Aldrich's voice had lost its playfulness. You're a guest in my territory. My hospitality has limits. Does it? Theron didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Something in his tone commanded attention, demanded respect. Tell me, Alphavorn, what are those limits? Mocking a bride at her own wedding? Humiliating a woman for choosing love over politics? Whispers erupted throughout the hall. Jessamy stood, placing her hand on Theron's arm. Don't. Please. It's not worth it. He looked down at her, and his expression shifted. The hard edges softened. You're right. You're worth more than any of this. He sat back down, but the damage was done. Aldrich's face had gone red, his wolf rising close to the surface. No one challenged an alpha in his own territory. You'll regret that, stranger, Aldrich said quietly. Before this night ends, you'll regret every word. The feast continued, but the atmosphere had changed. Jessamy could feel hostile gazes following their every movement. Servants who'd been merely cold became openly disdainful. Even the food seemed to turn sour on her tongue. Beside her, Theron ate calmly, apparently unconcerned. You're not worried, she observed. Should I be? You just insulted the most powerful wolf in Ashenmoor, in his own hall, on our wedding night. Theron set down his fork and turned to face her fully. This close, she could see the flecks of silver in his eyes, like stars scattered across a winter's sky. Jessamy, why did you marry me? The question caught her off guard. You know why? Tell me again. She hesitated, then lowered her voice. Because when I look at you, I see something I've never seen before. A bond that shouldn't exist. Something ancient and powerful and terrifying, she admitted. But also right. More right than anything I've ever known. Theron was quiet for a moment. Then he reached up and brushed a strand of hair from her face. His touch, feather-light. What exactly do you see when you look at people, Jessamy? Her breath caught. Who told you about my gift? No one. I see the way you watch crowds. The way your eyes unfocus sometimes, like you're perceiving something beyond the visible. The way you flinch when certain people touch you. His voice was gentle. I've been watching you for months. Learning you. And I know you're not like anyone else in this pack. Jessamy's heart pounded. Her gift was her most closely guarded secret. Her mother had warned her since childhood to hide it, to never let anyone know what she could perceive. They'll fear you, her mother had said. They'll use you or destroy you. Trust no one. But looking into Theron's eyes, she felt the truth of their bond humming beneath her skin. I see connections, she whispered. Bonds between people. Pack ties, blood relations, enmities, loyalties, and mate bonds. She swallowed hard. The moment I saw you in the marketplace, I knew. Knew what? That you were mine. That you'd always been mine somehow. Even before we met. Theron's hand found hers under the table, intertwining their fingers. And what else do you see when you look at me? Jessamy frowned, focusing her gift on him as she'd done dozens of times before, and froze. Because something had changed. Where before she'd seen only the golden bond connecting them, now she saw threads extending from Theron in every direction, hundreds of them, thousands, stretching beyond the walls of this hall, beyond Ashenmoor, reaching across mountains and rivers to destinations she couldn't fathom. Pack bonds, countless pack bonds, more than any alpha she'd ever perceived. And at the center of the web, Theron burned like a sun. What? Her voice cracked. What are you? Before he could answer, a commotion erupted near the main doors. A messenger burst through, travel-stained and frantic, bearing a banner Jessamy didn't recognize. A silver wolf on a field of black. The royal crest of Valdrin. The hall fell silent as the messenger strode forward, ignoring Aldrich's guards who moved to intercept him. "I bear word from the High Council," the messenger announced, his voice carrying to every corner. "I seek—" He stopped. His eyes found Theron. And to Jessamy's bewilderment, the messenger dropped to one knee. "My king," he said, "we've been searching for you for 3 months. The council grows restless. Lord Rathmore claims you've abandoned the throne." The silence that followed was absolute. Jessamy felt the world tilt beneath her feet. She looked at Theron, at the man she'd married, the wanderer, the nobody. And suddenly, every strange detail snapped into focus. The sword too fine for a drifter. The way he carried himself, as though accustomed to command. The careful way he never spoke of his past. "Theron?" Her voice was barely a whisper. He turned to her, and in his eyes she saw apology, fear, and something else. Hope. "My name is Theron Valdris," he said quietly, for her ears alone. "I am the Alpha King of Valdrin, and I am so sorry for not telling you sooner." The messenger rose. "Sire, you must return. Lord Rathmore has called an emergency session. He claims your absence proves you unfit to rule. He's gathering support for a vote of no confidence." Jessamy heard the words as though from a great distance. Around her, the Ashenmoor wolves had gone deathly still. Aldrich's face cycled through emotions, shock, disbelief, and finally, dawning horror. He had spent the evening mocking the Alpha King's bride. "You," Aldrich choked out. That's impossible. The Alpha King doesn't wander into territory pacts like a common rogue." Theron rose slowly from his seat, and Jessamy watched the transformation happen before her eyes. The gentle wanderer dissolved, replaced by something far more formidable. His shoulders squared, his chin lifted, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "The Alpha King goes where he pleases," Theron said, "and he chooses his own mate, regardless of what any territorial lord thinks appropriate." He turned to face the hall, and Jessamy saw wolves literally shrink back from his gaze. "For 6 months I've lived among you. I've watched how you treat those you consider beneath you. I've seen your petty cruelties, your social games, your willingness to destroy anyone who doesn't conform to your expectations." His eyes swept the room like a blade. "And I've seen how you treated the woman I love." His hand found Jessamy's, drawing her to stand beside him. "My mate," he said, and the word resonated with power. "My queen." Someone in the back dropped a goblet. The clatter was thunderous in the silence. Jessamy's mother made a strangled sound. Her sister Nova stared with wide eyes, her mouth forming words that couldn't quite emerge. "Every laugh," Theron continued, his voice soft and deadly. "Every whispered insult, every cruel toast. I will remember them all." Aldrich stumbled forward, his arrogance completely evaporated. "Your Majesty, please. We didn't know. If we had known, you would have treated her differently?" Theron's tone was ice. "That's precisely the problem, Alpha Vorn. Kindness shouldn't require knowing someone's rank to be given freely." He turned to the messenger. "Tell the council I return within the fortnight, and tell Rathmore that if he wants my throne, he's welcome to challenge me for it. Personally." The messenger bowed and departed. Jessamy stood frozen, her mind racing. Everything she thought she knew had shattered and reformed into something unrecognizable. She was no longer a woman who'd married beneath her station. She was the Alpha Queen of Valdrin, and her husband was a man who'd hidden his identity for 6 months, letting her believe he was nobody, letting her sacrifice her reputation, her family's approval, everything, for what she thought was a packless wanderer. "Jessamy." Theron's voice was gentle now, the command gone. "I need to explain." She looked up at him, and the bond between them blazed in her vision. golden and ancient and unbreakable, just as it had been from the first moment she saw him. But now she saw something else too, something dark wrapped around the golden threads, something that looked like grief, like secrets that weighed more heavily than any crown. "Yes," she said, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. "You do." She pulled her hand from his and walked toward the doors, her head held high, ignoring the wolves who scrambled to bow as she passed. Behind her, she heard Theron following, and beneath her shock and anger, beneath the swirl of confusion, one question burned brighter than all the others. If he was the Alpha King, the most powerful wolf in all the territories, why had he needed to hide? And what was he running from? The garden behind Aldrich's Hall was cold and silent, moonlight casting silver shadows across hedgerows that hadn't been tended in years. Jessamy walked until she reached a stone bench overlooking a frozen pond, then stopped. She didn't turn around, but she felt Theron approach. Felt him the way she'd always felt him. A presence that made her soul hum with recognition. "Say what you need to say," she said. He stopped a few paces behind her. When he spoke, his voice was stripped of the authority he'd wielded in the hall. Raw. Vulnerable. 8 months ago, someone tried to kill me. Jessamy turned slowly. "What?" Theron stood with his hands at his sides, making no move to touch her. The moonlight carved his face into planes of shadow and silver, and she saw exhaustion there. Bone-deep weariness that he'd hidden behind gentle smiles and quiet patience. It was Lord Rathmore, my father's oldest advisor, the man who held my hand at my parents' funeral when I was 17, and told me I'd make a fine king someday. Theron's jaw tightened. He poisoned my wine at a council dinner. I only survived because my wolf sensed something wrong, and I reacted. Reacted how? I killed 2 of his guards before anyone could understand what was happening. Then I collapsed. My physician said I was dead for nearly a minute before my heart started again. Jessamy's hand flew to her mouth. Theron. When I woke, Rathmore had already spun his story. The king had gone mad, attacked innocent guards. Clearly the pressures of rule had broken me. Theron's laugh was bitter. Half the council believed him, the other half weren't sure what to believe. So I ran. You ran? She couldn't reconcile this with the powerful Alpha who'd silenced a room with a look. I needed to disappear, to heal, to find proof of Rathmore's treachery before he could finish what he started. Theron finally moved closer, his eyes searching her face. I never intended to stay in Ashenmoor. It was supposed to be a waypoint, nothing more. But then I saw you. Jessamy's breath caught. In the marketplace. You were buying apples, haggling with the merchant like your life depended on saving 2 coppers, and when a child bumped into you, spilling your basket everywhere, you just laughed and helped her pick them up. His voice softened. I'd spent weeks surrounded by people who wanted to use me or destroy me. And there you were, being kind for no reason at all. So you stayed. I stayed. I told myself I was gathering intelligence, learning about the border territories. But really, he took another step closer. I was learning you, watching you, falling in love with a woman who saw me as nothing more than a nameless wanderer and chose me anyway. Jessamy felt tears prick her eyes. You should have told me. I know. Before the wedding. Before I stood in front of everyone I've ever known and... I know. His voice cracked. I was terrified, Jessamy. Terrified that if you knew who I was, you'd want me for the crown instead of just me. And I was selfish. I wanted one thing in my life that wasn't tangled up in politics and power and people trying to kill me. A tear slid down her cheek. So you let me believe I was ruining my life for a nobody. You were never ruining your life. He closed the distance between them, his hands hovering near her face but not quite touching. You were choosing something real, something neither of us has ever had. And now? Now Rathmore knows I'm alive, he'll move against us both. Jessamy processed this. He'll try to kill me to hurt you. He'll try. Theron's eyes went hard. He'll fail. Jessamy studied her husband in the moonlight, the Alpha King of Valdren, a man with enemies who'd already tried to murder him once, a man who loved her enough to become nobody, just to know if she'd love him back. If I go with you to Valdren, she said slowly, I become a target. Yes. And if I stay here, I remain the woman who married above her station. Aldrich will make my life miserable out of spite, and Rathmore might still come for me to draw you out. Also yes. Theron didn't flinch from the truth. I'm offering you danger either way. The only difference is whether you face it beside me or alone. That's not much of a choice. It's the only honest one I can give you. Jessamy turned back to the frozen pond. Her reflection stared up at her, fragmented by cracks in the ice. My mother will never forgive me, she said. She barely spoke to me after I announced the engagement. If I leave Ashenmore as queen, you'll be beyond her reach, beyond anyone's reach who would hurt you. Except Rathmore. I will handle Rathmore. The cold certainty in Theron's voice made her shiver. He took 3 years of my life, made me doubt everyone around me, forced me to watch my own counsel wonder if I'd gone mad. His hand found her shoulder, turning her gently to face him. He will not take you from me. You barely know me. I know you see bonds that others can't perceive. I know you refused 3 advantageous matches because you were waiting for something real, even when you couldn't explain what that meant. I know you're terrified right now, but you haven't run. His thumb brushed her cheek, catching a tear she hadn't realized had fallen. And I know that when I look at you, I see the rest of my life. Jessamy's gift flared unbidden. She saw the golden threads between them blazing brighter than before, saw the dark grief wrapped around his heart, saw the desperate hope he was trying so hard to contain. He meant every word, every single word. What happens when we reach Valdren? We face Rathmore together. We prove his treachery, and we take back what he stole from me. Theron paused. From us. And if we fail, then we fail together. But I don't intend to fail. Jessamy thought about her life in Ashenmore, the whispers that had followed her since childhood, the loneliness of having a gift no one could understand, the slow suffocation of living half-hidden, always afraid someone would discover what she could do and use it against her. Then she thought about the bond she'd seen the moment Theron walked into the marketplace, the certainty that had flooded her like sunlight. I have conditions, she said. Theron's eyebrows rose slightly. Name them. No more secrets. Not about Rathmore, not about the danger, not about anything that affects both of us. Agreed. I want my sister brought to Valdren. Nova has no future here, not after tonight. Aldrich will punish anyone connected to me. Done. She'll be under my protection. And Jessamy hesitated. I want to be useful, not a figurehead queen who sits in a tower while you fight battles. If there's war coming, I want to be part of the strategy. My gift can help. His face changed, something like wonder breaking through the tension. You want to fight beside me? I want to be your partner. In everything. He was silent for a long moment. Then he lifted her hand and pressed his lips to her palm, right over the pulse point where her heart beat wildest. I was prepared to beg you to stay, he admitted. I had speeches prepared, arguments, promises. And instead? Instead, you're negotiating terms like a general preparing for war. He smiled, and it transformed his face. I chose well. We chose each other. Yes. He pulled her closer, wrapping his arms around her. We did. They stood like that in the frozen garden, 2 people who'd found each other against impossible odds, preparing to face an enemy who wanted them both dead. And somewhere beneath Jessamy's fear, beneath the shock and confusion, something else began to grow. Something that felt like hope. They left Ashenmore before dawn. Jessamy had expected resistance, guards at the gates, Aldrich making one last desperate attempt to salvage his dignity. Instead, she found wolves practically falling over themselves to assist their departure. Amazing how quickly contempt transformed into servility. Nova rode beside her, still pale with shock. Jessamy had gone to her sister's room in the darkest hour of the night and told her everything. Nova had listened in silence, then packed a single bag and said, "I always knew there was something strange about him." The journey to Valdrin took 4 days. Each mile carried them further from everything Jessamy had known and deeper into territory she'd only heard about in stories. The Ashenmoor forests gave way to rolling hills, then to mountains that scraped the sky like the fangs of ancient beasts. And the people. Word traveled faster than horses. By the second day, villagers were lining the roads to catch a glimpse of their king. They cheered when Theron passed, threw flowers, wept with joy at his return. "They love you," Jessamy said, watching a child wave frantically from her father's shoulders. "They love stability," Theron replied. "My absence frightened them. Rathmore has been filling that fear with promises he never intends to keep." "What kind of promises?" "Lower taxes, more autonomy for the regional pacts. Things that sound good until you realize they'd bankrupt the treasury and fracture the kingdom." His jaw tightened. He doesn't want to rule Valdrin. He wants to carve it into pieces he can control. On the third day, Jessamy used her gift to study the escort Theron had summoned to meet them at the border. 12 warriors in the black and silver of the Royal Guard. She saw their bonds to Theron, strong and true, loyalty that ran deeper than mere duty. "These men would die for you," she said quietly. Theron nodded. "They've proven it before. When Rathmore made his move, these 12 were the only ones who stood with me without hesitation." "Only 12 out of how many?" 200. The number hung in the air, heavy with betrayal. The rest either sided with Rathmore openly or waited to see which way the wind blew. Jessamy committed their faces to memory. 12 men who'd chosen the right side when it mattered. 12 men she could trust. On the 4th day, they crested a final ridge, and she saw it. Valdrin's capital rose from the valley below like something from a fever dream. White stone towers catching the afternoon sun. Bridges spanning a river that wound through the city like a silver ribbon, and at the center, dominating everything, the castle where she would now live. It was beautiful in a way that made her chest hurt. "Welcome home," Theron said softly. Home. The word felt foreign on her tongue. She'd spent 23 years in Ashenmoor, never once feeling like she belonged. Now she was expected to belong here, in this magnificent place, among people who would judge her even more harshly than those she'd left behind. "They'll hate me," she said. A nobody from a border territory. Suddenly their queen. "Some will." Theron didn't bother with false reassurance. The noble families have been positioning their daughters for years, hoping to secure a royal match. You've disrupted their plans spectacularly. "Wonderful. But others will love you." He guided his horse closer to hers. "The common folk don't care about bloodlines and political alliances. They care about whether their queen is kind, whether she sees them as people or pawns. You've already shown me which one you are." They descended into the valley as the sun began to set. The city gates opened before them, and Jessamy heard it building, a roar of voices swelling like a wave. The people of Valdrin had come to welcome their king home, and to meet the mysterious woman he'd made his queen. Jessamy straightened her spine, lifted her chin, and rode into her new life with her heart pounding and her gift showing her something unexpected. Everywhere she looked, bonds were forming. Thin golden threads, tentative but real, stretching from the crowd toward her like offerings. These people wanted to believe in her. Now she just had to prove she was worth believing in. The castle swallowed Jessamy whole. Corridors stretched in every direction, lined with portraits of Theron's ancestors, wolves with his same gray eyes staring down at her as though measuring her worth. Servants appeared and vanished like ghosts, bowing deeply but watching her with barely concealed curiosity. And everywhere, bonds. Jessamy had never been surrounded by so many connections at once. In Ashenmoor, she could block most of it out. reduce the noise to a manageable hum. Here, in the seat of power where alliances and enmities had festered for generations, the bonds were overwhelming. Golden threads of loyalty, red threads of hatred, black threads of secrets that coiled like snakes. "You're pale," Theron said, steadying her elbow as they walked toward the council chamber. "What do you see?" "Everything." She pressed her fingers to her temple. "It's like standing in the middle of a spider's web, every thread vibrating with information I can't process fast enough." He stopped walking, turning her to face him. "Can you control it? Filter what comes through?" "Usually. But this place..." She shook her head. "There's so much history here. So much pain." Theron's expression shifted. "Then we use it." "What?" "Your gift. It's not a burden, Jessamy. It's a weapon." He lowered his voice as a servant passed. "Rathmore has spent 3 months poisoning the council against me. Half of them think I'm mad. The other half are too afraid to oppose him openly. But if you can see their true loyalties..." Understanding dawned. "I can tell you who to trust." "Can you do that? Without overwhelming yourself?" Jessamy considered the web of bonds surrounding her. It was chaotic, yes, painful. But beneath the noise, patterns were emerging. She just needed to learn how to read them. "I can try." The council chamber was a cavernous room dominated by a circular table carved from a single piece of black oak. 12 chairs surrounded it, each bearing a different family crest. 11 were occupied. The 12th, at the head of the table, awaited Theron. "Your Majesty." A silver-haired man rose, his smile sharp as broken glass. "How wonderful to see you recovered from your episode, Lord Rathmore." Jessamy focused her gift on him and nearly staggered from what she saw. Black threads everywhere, connections to half the wolves in this room, dark and pulsing with shared secrets. But beneath the darkness, something else. A single golden thread, thin and fraying, leading somewhere beyond the castle walls. Someone he loved. Someone he was doing all of this for. "Lord Rathmore," Theron said coolly, taking his seat. "I see you've kept my chair warm. Someone had to maintain order in your absence." Rathmore's eyes slid to Jessamy. "And who is this creature you've brought into our chambers?" "My wife. Your queen." Theron's voice could have frozen fire. "You will address her with the respect her station demands." Murmurs rippled around the table. Jessamy felt gazes crawling over her, assessing, dismissing. She lifted her chin and looked at each council member in turn. Lord Vance, golden threads to Theron, strong and true, an ally. Lady Morcant, threads split between Theron and Rathmore, wavering, undecided. Lord Blackwood, nothing but red threads, hatred for everyone, loyalty to no one. Dangerous. She worked her way around the table, cataloging bonds, building a map of the political landscape in her mind. By the time she finished, she knew exactly who would stand with them and who would need to be watched. "Your queen has an interesting way of staring," Rathmore observed. "Is she simple? Or merely rude?" "Neither." Jessamy spoke for the first time, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I was simply wondering, Lord Rathmore, why a man with your obvious intelligence would make an enemy of his king." The chamber went silent. Rathmore's smile didn't waver, but she saw his hands tighten on the arms of his chair. "I'm sure I don't know what you mean." "Don't you?" She held his gaze. "The threads tell a different story." Before we continue, please take 2 seconds to like this video. It was a gamble. A massive, possibly suicidal gamble. But Jessamy had learned long ago that predators respected strength, not submission. "Threads," Rathmore repeated slowly. What an evocative choice of words. "My wife sees things others cannot," Theron said. "Bonds, loyalties, betrayals." He let the word hang in the air. "It's quite useful for identifying traitors." Something flickered in Rathmore's eyes. Fear? Calculation? Both? How convenient, he said smoothly. A wife who can confirm whatever accusations you choose to make. I'm sure the council will give her visions all the weight they deserve. The council will have evidence, Theron replied. Physical, documented evidence of your conspiracy. My wife's gift simply helps us know where to look. Jessamy felt the shift in the room. Wolves who'd been leaning toward Rathmore now sat straighter, uncertainty clouding their expressions. The balance of power was tilting, just slightly, back toward Theron. Rathmore saw it too. His smile finally cracked. This isn't over, he said quietly, rising from his seat. Not by a long measure. No, Theron agreed. It isn't. But it will be. Soon. Rathmore swept from the chamber, 3 council members following in his wake. Lord Blackwood remained seated, his eyes fixed on Jessamy with an intensity that made her skin crawl. Then he too rose, and departed without a word. When the doors closed, Theron exhaled slowly. Well, he said, that could have gone worse. That night, Jessamy stood on the balcony of the Queen's chambers, watching the city lights flicker below like earthbound stars. Her mind still buzzed with everything she'd perceived in the council chamber. So many bonds, so many secrets. And beneath it all, the growing certainty that Rathmore was planning something far worse than a simple power grab. The golden thread she'd seen leading away from him. Someone he loved enough to betray his king for. Who were they? Where were they? You should be sleeping. She turned to find Theron in the doorway, his formal attire replaced by simple linen, his hair still damp from washing. So should you. I tried. He joined her at the balcony's edge. Kept thinking about the way you handled Rathmore, the look on his face when you mentioned the threads. I probably made things worse. Now he knows what I can do. Now he's afraid of what you can do. Theron's shoulder brushed hers. There's a difference. Jessamy shivered, though not from cold. Every time he touched her, even accidentally, her gift flared. The bond between them blazed so bright it was almost blinding. Can I ask you something? She said. Anything. When did you know? That we were mates? He was quiet for a moment. The marketplace. When you laughed after dropping your apples, something in my chest just unlocked. Like I'd been holding my breath for years and finally remembered how to exhale. Jessamy's heart clenched. I felt it too. I didn't understand what it meant at first. I just knew I couldn't look away from you. And now? Now I understand. She turned to face him fully. The bond is real. Everything I feel is real. But Theron, we've known each other for 6 months and been married for less than a week. There's still so much we don't know about each other. Then we learn. He reached up, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. We have time. Do we? With Rathmore plotting? With the council divided? With half the kingdom thinking you're mad? Yes. His certainty was absolute, because whatever comes, we face it together. That was the deal, remember? Partners in everything. Jessamy felt tears threatening. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. Not easy, but simple. His hand cupped her cheek, thumb brushing across her skin. I love you, Jessamy. I loved you before I knew your gift, before I understood the bond, before any of this. I watched you for months and fell in love with a woman who was kind when she didn't have to be, strong when no one was looking, and brave enough to choose a stranger over everything she knew. Theron, you don't have to say it back. I know this is overwhelming. I know you need time to... She kissed him. It wasn't gentle, wasn't tentative. She grabbed the front of his shirt and pulled him down to her, pouring every confusing, terrifying, exhilarating emotion into the press of her lips against his. He responded instantly, one hand sliding into her hair, the other wrapping around her waist, pulling her close until no space remained between them. He kissed her like she was air, and he was drowning. Like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. When they finally broke apart, Both breathing hard, the bond between them had transformed. No longer just golden threads. Now it was fire. Jessamy, he breathed against her lips. I love you too, she said. I don't need more time to know that. I've known it since the marketplace. I was just too scared to believe I could have something this good. You can have it. He pressed his forehead to hers. You can have all of it. Promise me something. Name it. Promise me we survive this. Whatever Rathmore is planning, whatever comes next, promise me we get through it together. His arms tightened around her. I promise. Even if it costs everything? Jessamy. He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. You are the only thing that matters. Whatever I have to sacrifice to keep you safe, I'll do it without hesitation. That's what I'm afraid of. Then be afraid. He kissed her forehead softly. But be afraid with me. Don't push me away. Don't try to protect me by leaving. Whatever happens, we face it together. She nodded, not trusting her voice. They stood wrapped in each other until the moon climbed high overhead. Two people who'd found something rare and precious in a world that seemed determined to tear them apart. Tomorrow would bring new battles, new threats, new reasons to be afraid. But tonight, they had this. And for now, it was enough. The attack came 3 nights later. Jessamy woke to the sound of steel on steel, followed by a scream that cut off too quickly. She was out of bed before her mind fully caught up, her hand finding the dagger Theron had insisted she keep under her pillow. The door to her chamber burst open, but it wasn't an assassin who stood there. It was Nova, her sister's face white with terror. They're in the castle, Nova gasped. Dozens of them. Jessamy, they're killing everyone who stands in their way. Theron appeared behind Nova, a sword in each hand, blood already staining his shirt. We need to move. Now. What's happening? Rathmore. The word was a curse. He's made his move. Half the guard has turned. He's taken the council hostage. Jessamy's blood went cold. The council? But Lord Vance, Lady Morcant. Our leverage. He wants me to surrender. Abdicate the throne in exchange for their lives. Theron's eyes were hard as iron. He knows I won't sacrifice my people. Then what do? We find another way. He grabbed her hand, pulling her into the corridor. There's a passage in the East Tower, leads outside the walls. We get out, regroup with the loyal guards and take back the castle. They ran. The castle had become a war zone. Bodies lay in corridors Jessamy had walked just hours before. Servants cowered in doorways. Somewhere in the distance, she heard more screaming. Theron led them through twisting passages, Nova stumbling to keep up. Twice they encountered enemy soldiers. Twice Theron cut them down with brutal efficiency. Jessamy had never seen him fight before. The wanderer she'd married had been gentle, patient, soft-spoken. The man beside her now was something else entirely. A predator unleashed. A king fighting for his kingdom. They reached the East Tower just as dawn began to lighten the sky. The passage is behind that tapestry, Theron said. Nova, you first. Jessamy, I'm not leaving without you. You're not leaving without me. I'll be right behind you. Theron, please. His voice cracked. Please, just this once, don't argue. Let me keep you safe. Jessamy looked into his eyes and saw something she'd never seen there before. Terror. Not for himself. For her. Together, she said firmly. We go together or not at all. Before he could respond, a slow clap echoed through the tower. How touching. Rathmore emerged from the shadows flanked by a dozen soldiers. His smile was the smile of a man who'd already won. The king and his pet seer, cornered like rats. Theron pushed Jessamy behind him. Let them go, Rathmore. This is between you and me. Oh, it was. Until you brought her into it. Rathmore's eyes found Jessamy, and what she saw in them made her stomach turn. A wolf who can see bonds. Do you have any idea how valuable that makes her? The secrets she could extract. the alliances she could expose. Touch her and I'll tear your throat out. You're outnumbered, Theron, outmaneuvered, and soon you'll be out of time. Rathmore gestured, and his soldiers advanced. Surrender now. I'll make it quick. Keep fighting, and I'll make you watch while I break her mind, extracting every secret she's ever seen. Jessamy felt the threat land like a physical blow, but beneath her fear, her gift was working. Analyzing. Seeing. The golden thread she'd noticed in the council chamber. It was stronger now, easier to trace, and it led directly to one of the soldiers behind Rathmore, a young man, barely old enough to hold a sword. His eyes weren't hard like the others. They were frightened, conflicted. His son. Your son, Jessamy said suddenly. That's why you're doing this. He's the one you're protecting. Rathmore's composure finally cracked. What did you say? The golden thread. It leads to him. She pointed at the young soldier who flinched. He's your son. Illegitimate, I'm guessing, from the way you've hidden him among common guards. But you love him. Everything you've done, the conspiracy, the assassination attempt, and the coup, it's all to secure a future for him. Silence, Rathmore hissed. Does he know? Jessamy pressed. Does he know how many people have died for his inheritance? The young man, Rathmore's son, looked at his father with dawning horror. Father? What is she talking about? She's lying. I can see bonds, not create them. Jessamy's voice was steady despite her pounding heart. I'm telling you what already exists. Your father has killed dozens, betrayed his king, and plunged this kingdom into chaos. All for you. Father. The young man's voice broke. Tell me she's lying. Rathmore's face contorted. Everything I've done for us, for our family. The king would never have acknowledged you. You would have lived and died a common soldier. So you murdered people? You tried to kill King Theron? He would have destroyed us eventually. His father suspected, his grandfather before him. The Valdris line has always feared rivals. I had to act first. The young soldier, Rathmore's son, lowered his sword. I never asked for this. You didn't have to ask. You're my blood. My legacy. I would burn this kingdom to ashes before I let them take that from me. Then you'll burn alone. The young man stepped aside, creating a gap in Rathmore's line. It was all Theron needed. Theron moved like lightning. His sword caught the first soldier before anyone could react, then the second, then the third. The element of surprise lasted only seconds, but seconds were enough. Jessamy grabbed Nova, pressing them both against the wall as chaos erupted. Steel clashed, men screamed, blood splattered stone, and through it all, Theron cut a path toward Rathmore with single-minded fury. Rathmore was no warrior. He'd spent decades wielding influence, not swords. He backpedaled frantically, calling for guards who were too busy dying to help. Thika Theron, please! Rathmore stumbled against the wall. We can negotiate. I have information. Allies you don't know about. I can be useful. You tried to kill me. Theron's voice was death itself. You threatened my mate. You butchered my people. I can give you names. Everyone involved. Every traitor in your ranks. I don't need names. Theron glanced at Jessamy. I have her. He raised his sword. Wait. Jessamy stepped forward, her mind racing. He mentioned allies. Other conspirators we don't know about. Theron hesitated. Jessamy. If we kill him now, we lose that information. The rot might run deeper than we realize. She focused her gift on Rathmore, pushing through the chaos of his bonds. He's connected to people outside Valdrin, foreign wolves. I can see the threads, but I can't follow them without something more to go on. So you want me to spare him? I want you to be smart. She met his eyes. We came too close to losing tonight. If there are more enemies we don't know about, we need to find them before they strike. Theron's jaw worked. Every line of his body screamed for violence, for the closure of ending the man who'd nearly destroyed everything. But he lowered his sword. Chain him, he ordered the loyal guards who'd finally arrived. Deepest cell, triple guard, no visitors. Rathmore sagged with relief, then caught himself, trying to salvage some dignity. This isn't mercy, Theron told him quietly. This is patience. When I've finished extracting every secret from that treasonous mind of yours, when I've hunted down every ally and burned every scheme to ash, then you'll die. And no one will remember you existed. They dragged Rathmore away. Jessamy leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline was fading, leaving her shaky and hollowed out. Theron was beside her instantly. Are you hurt? Did anyone? I'm fine. She managed a weak smile. Just tired. Using the gift that intensely takes a lot out of me. You were incredible. He pulled her into his arms, heedless of the blood staining his clothes. You found his weakness, turned his own son against him. I just told the truth. The truth at the right moment. That's a weapon too. Nova approached tentatively. Is it over? For now. Theron released Jessamy but kept one arm around her waist. There's still work to do, conspirators to find, a kingdom to reassure, but the worst is past. Jessamy looked at the carnage around them, the bodies of traitors and loyal guards alike. At what cost? Too high. Theron's voice was heavy. But we're still standing, and we'll honor the fallen by building something worthy of their sacrifice. He led them out of the tower as the sun rose fully, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. A new day, a new beginning. The weeks that followed were a blur of interrogations, funerals, and reconstruction. Jessamy worked alongside Theron every day, using her gift to verify loyalties and expose hidden traitors. It was exhausting work. Each reading drained her, left her trembling and nauseous, but every conspirator they uncovered was one less threat to their future. Lord Blackwood had fled Valdren the night of the coup, his estate seized, and his name struck from the noble registry. Rumor placed him in the Eastern Territories, but Theron's agents were closing in. He wouldn't run forever. Rathmore's son, Calum, they learned, had been quietly released after swearing a blood oath of loyalty to Theron. He'd known nothing of his father's deeper plots, genuinely believing he was simply fighting for recognition. Jessamy had seen the truth of it in his bonds: shame, horror, and a desperate desire to atone. You're giving him a second chance, she observed as they watched Calum train with the loyal guards. Everyone deserves one. Theron's eyes were thoughtful. He didn't choose his father. He didn't choose this life. What he does with his second chance is up to him. And if he betrays us, then we'll deal with it. But I don't think he will. Do you? Jessamy studied Calum's bonds. Strong golden threads now connected him to Theron, to the guards he trained with, even to her and Nova. No, he's building something real here, a life he can be proud of. Then we trust until given reason not to. The council was reformed. Lord Vance took on greater responsibilities. Lady Morcant, freed from Rathmore's influence, proved to be a capable administrator. 3 seats remained empty, their former occupants awaiting trial. And through it all, the bond between Jessamy and Theron deepened. She learned the rhythm of his days, the early morning meetings, the afternoon training sessions, the evening hours he carved out for her alone. She learned his fears, that he would fail his people, that he wasn't worthy of his parents' legacy, that one day she would see who he really was and leave. I see who you are every day, she told him one night, tangled together in their chambers. I've seen your bond since the moment we met. There's nothing hidden from me, Theron, and I'm still here. Even knowing everything, especially knowing everything. He kissed her then, deep and slow, and she felt the last of his walls crumbling. The foreign conspirators Rathmore had hinted at proved more difficult to trace. Jessamy could see the threads leading beyond Valdren's borders, but following them required more than her gift alone. Theron dispatched trusted agents to investigate, and slowly, the picture emerged. A coalition of lesser kingdoms, threatened by Valdren's strength, had funded Rathmore's coup. With Theron gone and Rathmore installed as regent, they'd planned to carve the kingdom into pieces. War, Jessamy said flatly when Theron shared the intelligence. They wanted war. They wanted opportunity. Our weakness was their gain. His jaw tightened. But we're not weak anymore, and they'll learn that soon enough. The diplomatic missives he sent were masterpieces of controlled fury. Allies were reassured. Enemies were warned. The coalition crumbled before it could truly form, its members scrambling to deny involvement. Peace held. And somewhere in the chaos of rebuilding, Jessamy realized she'd stopped feeling like an outsider. Valdren was home now. Its people were her people. Its future was her future. When Nova accepted a courtship offer from Lord Vance's youngest son, Jessamy cried with joy. Her sister had found happiness, found belonging, found everything Ashenmoor had denied them. "Thank you," Nova whispered at her betrothal celebration, "for bringing me here, for giving me this chance." "You gave yourself this chance. I just opened the door." "Still," Nova squeezed her hands, "I never would have walked through it without you." 6 months after the coup, Theron found Jessamy on their balcony, watching the sunset paint the city in shades of amber and rose. "The council wants to schedule a formal bonding ceremony," he said, joining her at the railing. "They're concerned that our marriage in Ashenmoor wasn't legitimate enough." Jessamy laughed. "You mean they want a spectacle? Proof that the king's wild marriage to a nobody was actually destined all along. Something like that?" He pulled her close, resting his chin on her head. "What do you think?" "I think we've already bonded in every way that matters." She turned in his arms, looking up at him. "But if it would help stabilize things, give the people something to celebrate after everything they've been through, then we suffer through a ceremony." "Suffer?" She raised an eyebrow. "Marrying me again is suffering?" "The ceremony is suffering. The marrying you part is the reward." She laughed again, lighter this time. In the months since the coup, laughter had become easier. The weight she'd carried her entire life, the secrecy, the fear, the constant vigilance, had lifted. Here, in Valdren, she was accepted, valued, loved. "Then yes," she said, "let's give them their spectacle." The ceremony was held on the winter solstice, the longest night of the year. Every noble family in Valdren attended. Dignitaries from allied kingdoms filled the great hall. The common folk lined the streets, cheering as Jessamy's carriage passed. She wore silver because Theron said it matched her soul. Her hair was woven with winter flowers. And when she walked down the aisle toward him, she saw something she'd never expected. Every bond in the room pointed toward them. Golden threads from every corner, every guest, every servant and guard, all connecting to Jessamy and Theron like they were the center of a vast luminous web. "What do you see?" Theron murmured as she reached him. "Everything," she whispered back. "They love us. All of them. They love you. I'm just lucky enough to stand beside you." The vows they spoke were ancient, binding words that resonated with power. When Theron cut his palm and pressed it to hers, the bond between them flared brighter than the sun. Not just mates now, bound for eternity. "I promised you once that I would never trap you," Theron said, his voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "That you would always have a choice. That promise stands. Every day, I will earn the right to stand beside you. Every day, I will prove worthy of your trust." Jessamy felt tears sliding down her cheeks. "And I promise to see you truly, always. Not the crown, not the power, not the king. You. The man who became nobody so I could choose freely. The man who loved me before he knew what I could do." She pressed her bleeding palm harder against his. "I choose you, Theron. Today, tomorrow, forever. You are my home." The hall erupted in cheers. Later, at the celebration that followed, Nova pulled Jessamy aside. "Do you remember what Mother used to say?" Nova asked. "About wolves like us never finding happiness? About our gifts being curses? I remember. She was wrong. Nova glanced across the room, where her betrothed was laughing with Calum. We found our pack. Our place. Everything she said was impossible. Jessamy followed her sister's gaze, then looked at Theron, who was accepting congratulations from Lord Vance with genuine warmth. Maybe that's the point, she said slowly. The impossible things are the ones worth fighting for. Later still, in the quiet of their chambers, Theron held her close. Happy? He asked. Terrified, she admitted. Overwhelmed. Completely uncertain about what comes next. That doesn't sound like happy. It also sounds exactly like happy. She propped herself up to look at him. I spent 23 years hiding, surviving, and waiting for something I couldn't name. And now I have it. I have you. I have a kingdom that feels like home, and a sister who's thriving, and a purpose that matters. And that's terrifying? Having something to lose is always terrifying. She traced his jaw with her fingertips. But I'd rather be terrified with you than safe without you. Theron pulled her down, kissing her softly. I told you once that you were the only thing that mattered. That hasn't changed. It never will. I know. I love you, Jessamy. I love you too. Outside, the winter wind howled against the castle walls. Inside, wrapped in warmth and safety and love, Jessamy let herself believe in impossible things. She'd walked into her wedding in Ashenmoor expecting mockery and shame. She'd walked out a queen. But more than that, she'd walked out seen. Known. Chosen by a man who'd become nobody just to prove he was worth something. Worth everything, she murmured against his chest. What's that? You. You're worth everything. Theron's arms tightened around her. So are you, Jessamy. So are you. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, the bond between them humming with contentment. And somewhere in the city below, the wolves of Valdren celebrated their king and queen, never knowing how close they'd come to losing both. Never knowing that love, real love, had saved them all. They laughed when she married a nobody, Jessamy thought as sleep claimed her. Now she was queen, and they would never laugh again. Fair trade. More than fair. Where are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. I love hearing your thoughts. And if you'd like to support me, please subscribe. It's free, and it helps more people hear these stories.